why it found a spot and stayed. Because there were lots of records I got that I listened to and maybe even liked at the time, but they didn't stay with me for 25 years.
Right.
But I know initially this one probably really found its hooks because this was sad man music.
Yes. If you look that up in the dictionary, you will see Peter Steele's indifferent face.
Yeah. And I think that was because I was a very sad person. I was a very sad young man, but I also had all this baggage where I really, really needed to be seen as a man also. So I needed a record like this because, and it's interesting, I didn't really think about it until what you said earlier about like the vocals in Grave Babies being low. But listen to Peter still sing and look at him. Look at that fucking dude.
No one's bigger and no one's lower.
Like, say that dude's not a man. And what's interesting is it's, you know what I mean? Because the lyrics on here are so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like, almost to a fault. Like, almost it's like, yeah, because that is what stupid guys actually think.
It's almost farcical.
But we're too afraid, but most people are too afraid to say it. But that is, you know, like, what was it? Be My Druidess?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Episode 20, recorded February 18th, 2022.
Oh, this is okay. I guess that does make sense. Okay.
And not a single one of these has been released yet. So, but I'm looking to start releasing them very soon.
Coming up on half a year. So if you could get that in the can, you'd be solid gold for a while.
Yeah, man. It was really weird because, sorry, I'm making myself a drink right now.
It's live bartending.
Yeah.
Alchemy working here.
And I'm a little sick. I took a COVID test right before you came, so I don't have that, but just, you know. So I'm probably gonna have to like edit some coughs and some stuff, but so I apologize.
You don't have a cough button, do you? We need cough buttons.
Just another fucking thing to put in the signal chain to give me problems.
Yeah.
Oh man, I haven't had a Jack and Coke in a little bit, man. That's
probably since we last recorded.
Probably. It tastes amazing. But yeah, it was really it was really interesting, I guess, because basically late July, because that's whenever things in Small Deal were ending, and I had like all these plans about what I was going to do next. And this podcast being one of them. And then my mom got sick like the day that we were supposed to record the first one. We had to delay it a week.
Right.
Because my mom got put in the hospital. And then we did a podcast talking about my mom, where we talked about my mom at length. And then we had to delay the next one because the day we had it scheduled, she died. She died a week after the recording of the first episode.
Right.
And so all of my plans kind of went out the window, but we kept recording podcasts because I had sort of started that. So there was something in my brain that was like, just keep doing that. And it really wasn't, I guess, until about a few weeks ago that it was like, okay, do I still want to do the things that I had planned on doing in late July?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the things that I had put it like, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. Put out, make a bunch of like metal drum cover videos and do this podcast and all that sort of stuff. And it was, and I wasn't really sure, I guess. I mean, I was always going to release this, I wasn't going to just sit on it, but I just wasn't really sure if the person I am now was the same as the person who made all those plans. You know?
Right. Because even just in a few short months, things can change drastically.
Yeah, it was just so nuts. It was just so, and all this like, you know, Delta surge, and then the Omicron.
Yeah,
it's just
Delta surge. How quaint it is to remember that.
Yeah, because we did an episode that was sort of talking about that as it was sort of, you know, I don't remember if it was sort of as it was picking up.
I feel like as it was dying down, maybe.
That seems right.
Yeah. That seems like an age ago.
Yeah. And so, you know, which is just, it's just been a heavy few months, you know?
Yeah.
So I just wasn't really, it took a long time for the clouds to part for me to feel motivated to go back and listen to that first episode where I'm going to talk, where it's like, oh, I need to go and edit this conversation that I'm having about my mother as if she's still alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a crazy scenario I painted for myself. But I'm really grateful. I'm so intensely grateful that we got to capture that.
Definitely.
Because
yeah,
you know, I mean, how perfect of, you know, let's talk about the music my mom listened to in front of me,
right?
You know, and capture it, you know. So
right.
I'm real, you know. But yeah, so but here we are. I'm a little sick, so I'm gonna try to keep my sniffles and coughs off mic. So, but I apologize in advance.
It can't be as bad as like every time we record one of these, I'm like leaning back here and I'm always worried it's going to pick up really well. So,
I haven't noticed.
Okay. Yeah. It's probably going to be fine then.
I haven't really noticed. Cause I've been knee deep in editing and I was like looking up some of like the way that people edit these, like, you know, professionally or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, I ain't doing all that.
like what kind of stuff?
Like when they're it's like that kind of like like that thing right there. Like I'm just gonna try to make sure that I'm just gonna put a compressor on there to make sure that there aren't any things that stick out loud and volume wise.
Right.
They're gonna go in and take those out.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like
this isn't. I'm not making a. This is a conversation. I'm not making a radio program.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. I've listened to podcasts who started out editing every last little and pause and cough and stutter and all this stuff, and it takes immense amounts of time, and it's just really not worth it, and it almost sounds unnatural at a certain point. And what you end up doing over time is just learning how to, in real time, just sort of edit that stuff out of you doing it, and it just becomes more natural.
Right.
It's just not a big deal.
Well, and the thing that I've noticed, I think a lot goes. I think there's a lot that can go.
Edit that out.
Take that out. No stutter, no pause. I never hesitate. My thoughts are lucid and clear and intelligent and eloquent all the time. They just come out.
Flowing like a Rocky Mountain spring.
I think that there's a lot to be. I think you can get a lot of mileage out of being a fan of the thing you're trying to produce.
For sure.
And so
yeah.
I think that's why, as a young person, when you're young and you're making music, you're able to get so much further than you really rationally should be able to. And I think it's because you're just such an intense fan, so you know when you get it right, and you know what's important to you as a listener. And so it's like you are a part of the target audience.
Yeah.
So you know what's important to you and and as a podcast listener, the thing that bothers me the most, it's not even really the audio quality, it's more the volume consistency.
Yeah.
Like if I'm having to mess with that person's talking, now I need to turn this down, or now I need to turn this up. That's what's gonna bother me. So as long as this isn't that, then it's, or the mic, or it's not audio from a Zoom call. Because I've listened to podcasts where that's all it is.
No, totally. Like,
and I love it.
Yeah.
Because if it's a great conversation, then who cares?
Yeah. There's a group of dudes who do multiple podcasts per week that I listen to, and they're still remote from each other for various reasons. And that is always a problem because they talk over each other all the time, and like they acknowledge it and they try to fix it, but it's an easy thing to do, and that's just a weird reality of recording stuff like that remotely. Like so many people are doing these days.
Right.
But also, one of the dudes has a really low gate on his mic.
Okay.
So as soon as his voice gets up past a certain point, it just starts cutting out. And you can't hear what he's saying anymore, and that's a huge problem. And that's like professional dudes who do this kind of stuff, and you're like worrying about this, like. I think we're fine.
Oh, dude, yeah, we're so good.
To continue this thought from earlier today.
Yeah, like we talked for a while before we pressed record, but yeah. So, so what's been going on with you? Any other thing you want to throw out?
Not a damn thing.
Not a damn thing.
Not a damn thing.
So I watched that NFT video.
Yeah.
That you sent me.
I mean, I did want to talk about that. Yeah.
The Dan Olsen folding ideas.
Yeah.
Line goes up. It's really a disservice to call it a video. It's a documentary.
Yeah, I guess that's the best descriptor. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a snapshot. It's a bit of a I forget if he. Because there was the interview he did with FD Signifier also, and I forget if it was him in there who said that, or if I saw it somewhere else. But like the way that video has been sort of absorbed by, like, it's his highest view video by far,
and it's only been out a few weeks.
Yeah, and it was extremely quick to get there. But I think the way a lot of people seem to be looking at that piece is like as sort of an artifact of this time and this event that's happening right now. And it's a good like summation. Like every once in a while something will happen. I remember when COVID was like a year or so in, and this huge Atlantic article came out sort of summing everything up and saying why things had gone as bad as they had gone, and how the medical community had responded and why they had done so, and all these different things. They took a lot of disparate elements and put them all together in a cohesive thought and said, here's how things are. And that's really what this feels like to me.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
That's a really good description.
It's really something.
Yeah.
It's like, 2.5 hours? It's well beyond. It's like Marvel feature film, like Avengers 3 levels.
It might be like closer to 2.25.
Maybe, yeah.
But it's over 2 hours.
It's over 2 hours long, and it's a good description. It's a good summation of the state of cryptocurrency to an extent, and NFTs specifically.
Right.
It doesn't so much get into. He doesn't really cover the specifics, the mechanics of what makes cryptocurrency work per se. He doesn't get into what a blockchain is necessarily. I don't think he says in the video, but there are like extremely well done videos that explain exactly that.
Sure.
So maybe I think he didn't feel the need to get into that, but the things he does get into are very well expounded upon.
What I really appreciated how he. I mean, there's just so much information and put together in such a clear way.
Yeah.
And it was really nice to hear someone. I don't think I've heard someone who knew that much about, crypto and who had done that much research and had sort of been ear to the ground since it, really paying attention since its onset, that was speaking hypercritically of it, which was really nice to hear. Because I've only encountered, the evangelists, so to speak.
I mean, I think there's a good reason for that, and it's because early on, I guess like 10 years ago, you can say that's early on when Bitcoin really started taking off. The only people paying attention to it were people who knew what it was at all,
right?
Which was very few people to begin with, and B, the people who saw it as a way to make money,
right? Because
that's really all it was to begin with, for the layman.
Right. Whenever I knew that that crypto was the moment that I knew, whenever, this has gone bad. This isn't going to be good. It was whenever when I started to hear murmurs of it in the health and wellness community. When I started to hear people talk about it like a get rich quick, like talk about it solely from a like get in on this early,
get in on the ground floor.
Yeah. Talk about it so the same way people talk about pyramid schemes or and it's like, this make sure that our grandkids can blah blah blah, like just talking about it in that, nothing to do with. Because previously I'd only been exposed to people who were just really on, like anarchist types who were just really on board with the sort of the decentralized ethics of it. And so I was really, I really appreciated the video. It was amazing.
Awesome.
So I have never, but I hadn't.
Did you, I forget if he went into it in the video at all, but did you glean how he got into, like, what made him do this?
What I remember is him talking about how he was, like, how the video changed what it was going to be several times. Like, he was going to put one video, but then, like, someone else sort of beat him to it, I think. Or something else, or maybe maybe I might be mixing some stuff up, but that he I might be mixing up what he said about the flat Earth video, but
I think that's what he said about that video. Yeah,
but that it kept changing, like the NFT landscape kept changing so fast that that
definitely was part of it.
Well, what are you referring to?
So if you I don't know if I follow him on Twitter or not, but I've seen people retweet him a number of times over the past 9-12 months or whatever. And at some point he started keeping this Twitter thread over the course of about 9 or 12 months or so of him getting invites to these discords for crypto currency and mining and whatever else. And at some point I guess he just said, fuck it, I'll just start accepting them and see what's going on. Like, why not? It might be fun or it might be funny. And so getting into all that, he just sort of let himself be enveloped by all that shit. And I think once he really got to understand what it was that was, what it actually was, what was going on there, he sort of became fascinated by it. And that's what it came. That's kind of where it came from. Was he just kind of got subsumed, and he kept this public Twitter record of like all this crazy shit he was coming across, and then he made a video about it all.
Like I don't have a lot of strong feelings about any of it. I just, and I mean, and maybe, I guess like I'm always real measured in what I say about crypto because I have close friends who were really intense about it at some point. They might not be now. I haven't talked to them about it in a long time. But, but I don't know. But it always sort of seemed like I couldn't articulate it as well, of course. But it was whenever he's like, yeah, you made something that is just, that works worse than what we already have. And just because it's different doesn't mean that it's better. And and I really appreciated hearing, because it's like, yeah, that's kind of, you know.
Yeah, it's yeah. I'm no scholar of it, and I don't have a ton of great insight into it. But like one of the great, and I'm not gonna get it totally into it, but just like to touch on that decentralization aspect of it, and it's like a system like that has to have oversight somewhere along the line for everybody to be using it, and it can't just be chaos. It's not gonna work.
Yeah, and I guess like that
whether it's like morally more correct, that's a different question than like, can it happen?
Yeah, that I need to, one of these days we'll have an anarchy cast. I'll get my buds over here and we'll get their perspective on it, because that generally sort of seems to be my frustration with a lot of things that it's like, okay, cool, I can buy an abstract theoretical argument that this is morally correct and whatnot, but there are people who are going to benefit from the system, and there are people that who already have power, that already have resources, that can extract more, that don't care. They don't have your ethics. They don't care. They're not in this for it to be because it's more morally correct. They're in it because it's a way for them to have more, do more. And, like, what do you do about that? And that's always sort of like my problem, is that if you take away oversight, then the power is going to stay where it's at, and the resources are going to stay where they're at. Like if it's like, all right, man, I mean, I don't want to go off in the weeds, because I haven't like worked this out, like.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
I don't want to dive. Yeah. Like I said, I don't want to dive too deeply into that. But yeah, it's exactly like you said, that everything is going to remain as it is. The status quo is going to be maintained, and the only people who are going to benefit are the opportunists.
Right.
And that's it.
Right.
And they probably, not always, but they probably don't have anyone's best interest at heart but their own.
Right. And when you talk about like these things, like you talk like the anarcho-capitalists and stuff like that, like it's, like just extreme free market capitalism and stuff. And it's like I'll buy the argument that the free market can solve certain problems efficiently, but to me, it's okay if you want to, and like when you dig into like like a lot of these, like the Austrian School of Economics and just all that free market shit, it's, they build all these like fancy models, and it's all based on, people like spending money, and that like, and it's like that being, they put that on the same sort of like scientific footing as, like fucking mass and gravitation and electrons and shit. And so, but the thing is they, because they look at it as like sort of like, all right, well, if people have money and they're able to spend their money and make those choices, then the best things will, the best choices will be made, the best products, the best services will be the ones who survive, who will get this and who adapt to the marketplace and blah, 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 blah. And they talk about like this is a great thing for freedom and all this sort of shit. And it's like, but you're saying, by saying that dollars are votes, you're saying that people who don't have dollars shouldn't vote.
Yeah.
What? And that's never a problem. There's never a way to work that into the model. There's no, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It frustrates me, because then you run into a lot of weirdness, and these people who talk about that sort of stuff, and they talk about, as you get like more like on the right wing side of it, they talk about small government or weak government or whatever, but they don't really want small government. they want a really strong judicial branch that always rules in favor of businesses.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah, maybe that would be a fascinating conversation to have.
yeah,
I guess what I take from that, the whole model thing, is like, that's just a plan. You just made a plan, and what I've learned about a plan over my lifetime is that a plan is something that you make so that you have something to fall back on when shit doesn't go the way you thought that it was going to go.
Right. And I mean, and man, shit, like the models for electrons and shit aren't quite right. You know, like you can't, like you know, economic man, like you can't.
Yeah.
That idea. But yeah, there was a book I read last year called Democracy in Chains by Nancy McLean. And so it talks a lot about.
Yeah, they did Man in the Box. It's fantastic fucking song.
Yeah, Nice.
It doesn't work on any level almost. One very specific stupid level, and that's it's anyway.
Fuck you, Robert.
Yeah, thanks.
But yeah, man, you know, I've been exposed to a lot of those sort of like decentralized, whatever, free market, blah 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 ideas, and it's. I always have like a funny feeling about it because it always seems
rightly so, I would say.
It always seems to lead to like weird places. You know, but anyway.
Yeah.
So have you been a fan of like folding ideas? Like, have you been following him for some time?
I've watched his stuff for like a couple years here and there. He's not super prolific. He's not super frequent on the uploads.
Right. This is the first thing of his that I watched.
Okay.
Was the NFT video.
So there's a whole. Maybe you knew of it beforehand, but if you have seen FD Signifier's channel, you know what breadtube is.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Were you familiar with that before?
Very familiar. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he's like adjacent, but not in that.
Right.
Exactly. He doesn't get as directly political about it, I guess, a lot of times.
He's a friend of breadtube, but he's not.
Something like that. Breadtube adjacent.
Yeah.
Something like that. So anyway, yeah, if you've ever gotten into any of that shit, which I watch some of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I like a lot of it. I love like ContraPoints videos.
Mm-hmm.
Those are incredible. All of those. And you know.
Yeah, I watch like H Bomber Guy and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if
like Khadijah Zimbabwe, I love her stuff. I watch as much of her stuff as I can.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
But yeah, you get recommended these videos, and his folding ideas was one of the ones I got recommended at some point. Mm-hmm. And just good, interesting stuff. He used to do more film criticism, I think.
Right, that was the rabbit hole I sort of went down because I watched the Flat Earth one, which was amazing, and that like put words to so many ideas that I've been having rattling around in my head of having to deal with conspiracy-minded folks and whatnot.
Yeah.
That one was so good. Highly recommended. And then I really enjoyed the Fight Club one that he did where he talked about Fight Club and masculinity. It was like from a long time ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if I watched that one or
like
not.
6 years ago or something.
I'll have to go back and find that.
It was really good because it sort of talks about how, well, it really highlights a lot of sort of like the symbolism and whatnot going on about how, you know, like he's in a group for testicular cancer.
Right.
Like you literally can't, you know, like your manhood has been taken. And there's a guy his sob story is that, you know, he wasn't able to have kids and his wife has a new husband and, you know, a new family and all that. And how on the front end, it's a rebellion of, you know, it's a rebellion of sort of what's like society's version of masculinity. But then but Project Mayhem just replicates the same thing. Like it's the same trap. It's the same, in essence, it's the same thing. Just it's like you still have to wear the same uniform. It's just a different uniform. You still have to do the same kind of shit to get approval and to be a real man. It's just different shit.
Right.
And about how he isn't able to like how he relates to women and or like, you know, it's personified by Marla and how he's not able to have any interact with her in any way that isn't anger or indifference until the very end.
Right.
And things like that. And I thought it was really, really interesting, all the things he tied together in that regard, because because I remember how, well, and I mean, and even at the time, I remember it's like Brad Pitt looking out like in a billboard. It's like, is that what a real bed's supposed to look like? Da 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 da. And it's like, dude, that's what you look like. What the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, I haven't watched that movie in a very long time, but yeah, I remember that part specifically.
But it's but like the issue with it is it's looking at masculinity. It's looking at like what happens whenever men are dissatisfied, but they don't become truly dissatisfied with the system. They're dissatisfied that they don't get what they were promised. It's like, we were told we would be astronauts and rock stars and famous and celebrities and millionaires, and it's not going to happen, and we're pissed, or whatever the line is.
Right.
Instead of like casting all that aside and like, no, it was, it was foolish to want these things. It was foolish to want, it was foolish to want to be above other people. I am now mad that I'm below my boss, or I'm below this or below this because of all these status things that are bullshit, IKEA, an apartment, blah, 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 But yeah, I don't know. But at the same time, it was I don't know. I feel like we should rewatch it and talk about it at some point because it was so formative for our generation.
Yeah.
But yeah, that video does a good job sort of unpacking the masculinity aspects of it, of how it's, And what's cool though is like he does it in a way that doesn't interrogate, that doesn't like, he's not saying it's a bad film, which I really, really appreciate. Mm-hmm. He's not ripping on it as a piece of art. Like, he's like, this is the meaning that is coming through this art, right? But yeah, it's like sort of like the criticism that gets thrown at quote unquote like white feminism. Have you heard of that distinction?
I mean, maybe not.
So like the idea, like girl boss feminism, mm-hmm. Like the idea is that you're mad that you can't do a patriarchy too.
Okay. Okay.
Like, no, I want to be a boss and I want to subjugate people also. Not like, no, it's
nobody should be subjugated.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Like, oh no, these shitty men have kept me, haven't allowed me to subjugate people, and I want to subjugate people just how they do.
Yeah.
Like that's, and so, it's like, are you protesting the system or are you protesting access? Like, is that what are you mad about? Are you mad about injustice or are you mad about access, your access to be unjust?
Right.
And so it sort of was like Fight Club. That video on Fight Club sort of looks at masculinity in that same sense of, like, what happens when you're frustrated about not feeling like a man, but you don't have the language or the tools to think about a thing, or no one's told you about patriarchy or things like that, right? Then you're just going to probably end up in this weird perverted, this weird place of just like, well, I'm just mad that I'm not getting mine. Like, I was supposed to be Luke fucking Skywalker. I'm a goddamn special boy. What do you mean?
I think the answer to what happens is the fucking alt-right movement is exactly what happens.
That's part of it.
We can see one of the results. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, yeah, man, I don't know. Sorry.
But yeah, that makes sense because he's really good at that in his videos. He's really good at tying things together. He does that really well in the NFT video. In a sort of overarching, a good bird's eye view of things, but still being able to get into the weeds of stuff.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, Dan Olsen, Folding Ideas. Everything he does is great.
Good shit.
Everything FT Signifier does is great.
Yeah.
Everything Khadijah and Bobway does is great. Everything's great. It's great, great, great.
Some things are pretty great.
So, all right, well, I guess we can get into the topic at hand.
Speaking of things that are great, let's talk about Peter Steele.
Things that are green?
Green?
The Green Man?
The Green Man, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, so this is like sort of, it's going to be we'll call this the Gothcast. But it was just sort of, to take a break from sort of like the nostalgia lane and sort of like, hey, what's an album you've been listening to a lot lately from any time period for whatever reason. And so the one for me is I threw out a Typo Negative October Rust, and then
I picked Grave Babies, which was Holographic Violence.
Right.
I had the other album on the brain for a minute there. Holographic Violence by Grave Babies. Pretty unknown band as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I
all things considered.
Sure. And
the concept of a band being known or unknown in this day and age is so foreign, but it's something that was a big thing when we were
that's a good point.
Growing up.
That's a good point. I to sort of accentuate that, I remember, I don't know when this was. It was a few years ago. I think it was, but it was not too long after that movie Brightburn came out.
That was the superhero kid?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's like,
the, like,
but it's a horror
dark
movie.
one? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw that, but yeah, I know what it is.
But my buddy Jet was texting me about this new artist Billie Eilish and how good she was. And
Was she in the soundtrack for that movie?
I think so. I think the song "Bad Guys" in the closing credits or something.
Oh wow, was that new? That movie was that new?
I think so. I think that's where he heard it first. I might be wrong, but
I really like that first Billie Eilish album. It's really fucking good
because it's great, right? And so he was like, yeah, man. He's like, it's like this, but this, but this. I really think that.
That kid's going somewhere.
Yeah. I really think this could catch on, man. This is really, really good. And then I went to Spotify and took a screenshot of her monthly listens.
6 million
and it
views.
was already in the millions. And I sent it to him. He was like, oh well, fuck.
Behind the curve, man.
But
oh, that's good.
That is now everyone knows who Billie Eilish was, right? But someone can be the biggest artist to a certain demographic and no one else has any fucking idea who they are at all, which was not really true 20
it wasn't possible
20 years ago,
really,
because the way that you found out about anything was we were all watching
it was the same way anyone else found out about anything,
right?
I mean, with rare exception, if you were in an underground media circle of people who knew about shit,
tape trading
yeah, exactly but 99% of people were not. They were watching American Idol, or they were watching MTV, or
at a bare minimum you were looking at the same magazine rack, and maybe you weren't getting the one with Gwen Stefani on it and Black Eyed Peas, but you saw it,
yeah, right,
and you knew that, oh well, that's where the pop music is,
yeah. or you heard the radio.
Yeah. So
anyway, though, yeah, the concept of a known or unknown band is
that's
moot point at this time.
That's why we were talking about that.
So yeah, Grave Babies, Typo Negative, and then we were thinking about doing 2 albums apiece, which we had done before, I think. But we said, well, what if we just pick something we both had listened to, and wanted to sort of weave that in as well. And
Dreamweaver.
I don't know. Yeah, what is that? Wayne's World is.
It's in there, yeah.
Okay. And I put forth this Les Discrets.
I think
is how I think maybe it's said.
It's French.
It's French.
If you were gonna say it all American, you'd say Les Discrets.
Les Discrets. Predateurs.
Yeah, Predateurs. Les Discrets. Yeah. I think I introduced you to this album a few years back.
You did. It was I want to say it was the beginning of 2019. For some reason
That sounds right.
The reason I remember that is because when I was still living in an apartment with a roommate, I was doing a crossword puzzle. No, Jigsaw Puzzle. That's the one. And I just, for some reason, there's a confluence of things. There was this puzzle at that place at that time. I had just seen Parasite, so that was fresh in my mind. And then there was this album, which like just kind of all happened at once. And I was like, man, this is some good shit going on here from all angles.
Yeah, this album would be a good companion to Parasite.
Yeah. So that was when that was. So yeah. Anyway, we'll get to it. Yeah.
Okay. So where do you want to start?
Let's start with Grave Babies, perhaps, because
Okay.
you also sent me a video of a dude.
Oh, of Anthony Fantano
Yeah.
from the Needle Drop.
The Needle Drop, which, honestly, like, whenever I see that dude pop up on my, like, recommends, I'm like, fucking whatever, dude. I very much take that approach to that dude. I'm just like, I don't want to fucking hear what you have to say.
I don't hate him, but it's like, so why?
Because he just reminds me of, like, Pitchfork
Okay.
in video form.
So do you?
It's fine, but, like, I don't want to hear it.
I think the reason I don't mind him is because he doesn't talk about much music that I already have a relationship with.
Oh, so he's more like introducing you to things more often than not?
Right. Yeah. Like, and so there's something interesting to me to hear him talk about like Kanye or something.
Okay, sure.
Because I love the Kanye records that I've heard, but it's very much at a distance.
Mm-hmm.
Like I listen to Kanye's music the same way that I listen to it like he's already dead. I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
Okay.
like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh, this is music history and this is so good.
I mean, to a lot of people, he is dead. So,
I made that joke. It's a terrible joke. I made that joke the other day because so right now it's the real hot button with him is how abusive he's being towards Kim and like like they divorced and he's like buy a house across from the street and just harassment and all this.
really?
Yeah,
Oh,
just
God, I
crazy
haven't been
shit.
keeping up.
I haven't either. I
Nope.
don't care.
I saw his Billie Eilish feud the other
Right?
day.
Yeah, it's just what the fuck, dude.
He was like, I'm taking Kid Cudi off the album or whatever the fuck. Off
Yeah.
Donda, that's already been released. What? Anyway.
It makes me mad. It makes me mad because it's like, dude, you're doing a disservice to bipolar people here. Like you're fucking it up for Team Bipolar. Because you have all the resources to get help and to get better, but fucking just do it. God damn it. But it's like, it's a double-edged sword because it's like, okay, it's like, yeah, you're a crazy person or you're a person who's having crazy moments, but you are, but you have the resources to make those moments so much more intense than a normal person does. And so like, just shut the fuck up so I can enjoy your music.
Stop saying
Things.
things.
But yeah, like, so, but I made the joke. I was like, I almost wish that he would just die so we could just print the legend and like, just I don't wish that, but like acknowledging like, oh, that's what would happen if he did. And he can't hurt his legacy anymore if he's not here.
Yeah.
I don't want anything bad to happen to him. I'm just
Yeah,
talking
right.
shit. It's just a stupid joke I made.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you don't vibe with Needle Drop.
It's like I said, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just I've watched a few of the things and I'm just like,
So you feel like your opinions don't align with him.
it's very much I just don't vibe with his opinion.
Okay.
That's all that it is.
Okay.
He's got his insight and that's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you feel about his review of this album?
So conversely to what I just said, I can totally see where he's coming from and could almost agree with him if I had come at it from that angle.
Were you a fan of the record they did before this?
I found this one first.
You found this one first.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this is Holographic Violence. This is their second full album, full-length LP. And they had another one before this called Crushed. And I found this one first and then went back to that one. And I like them both.
Okay.
But they are, like he points out how they're different. And he's right. He's not wrong.
Yeah.
But the way he describes it is like the first one hit him a certain way and he came to this one looking for more of that and did not find it. And he's not wrong because they're pretty different albums.
Yeah, I I can understand that, and I disagreed with most of what he said.
Yeah, so did I. Like, I can see how he got there, but I don't. It didn't bother me for sure.
I didn't feel like the first record because he talked a lot about like it being lo-fi.
It sounds like shit, I think is what he was trying to say.
It just sounds like shitty guitar tone to me.
I mean, it sounds like an overblown. It sounds like a blown out speaker at times. It's like kind of clipping and it's kind of shitty overall.
Yeah.
I guess that's what he was getting at.
Yeah, maybe I just didn't listen to enough of it, but it just, I don't know. But it didn't quite feel like, I kind of disagreed with the idea that, okay, well, this first one was this like lo-fi, sincere, risk-taking record and blah, blah, blah. This one is just generic and it's not melodic and it doesn't have hooks and it's not catchy, but if you're going to be more produced, then you should be more experimental because all those sounds are going to come through, blah, blah, blah,
right,
blah,
and
blah. And I was like, man, I disagree with all this.
I guess that's kind of what I mean. Like, that is an insight that you can have, but it doesn't really mean much of anything. Like, there's nothing that says that you should be, that's a prescriptive action to take.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to me, it just sounded like the first record focused on, or Crushed.
I think. Maybe I'm one of these words.
The one before Holographic Violence.
Yes.
That it just had like that fucking like indie noise rock guitar tone that was really eats up all the frequencies.
It really does.
And so it's not even really a lo-fi recording to me. It's just a shitty
recording.
It's just a shitty guitar tone. It's and it's not even really a shitty guitar tone. It's just that kind of guitar tone that eats up all the other subtleties.
Right.
I mean,
yeah,
these are not shitty records by any means, or shitty produced, but like Smashing Pumpkins records, like Melancholy, like that guitar tone eats up all that mid-range. So there's it's like you feel that music, but you're not gonna you can't pick out. It's really difficult to pick out what the other instruments are doing and things like that.
Yeah, definitely.
And so but again, it almost makes me wonder if the reason that, because I loved this record.
Oh, cool.
I absolutely loved
it. Yeah, we hadn't talked about this at all yet, so
it almost makes me wonder if the reason that we vibe with it is if there's like an argument to be made about coming at things from a more metal perspective as opposed to a more punk perspective or something like that.
Maybe.
Because what I liked so much about this record, there were so many things I liked, but one of the things I liked a lot was that sort of like how minimal the production was. Like, feels like you can really hear this space.
Yeah.
It feels like there's a lot of air in the, in the recording. It was like, yeah, that's all I need. I don't need to add any other layers. I don't need to fill up the entire frequency spectrum.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. It also, though, the things that they do add in there, it adds a lot.
Because
in some cases it feels almost like a wall of sound. It feels like just this wave of distortion and low booming vocals and these weird like chants and shit.
Yeah.
I guess electronic drums. I didn't really even realize that they were all electronic drums.
Yeah, all drum machine on that motherfucker.
Okay. But yeah, what they do use, they get a lot out of it, and it takes up a lot of space. But yeah, to your point, it doesn't drown everything out like the first album does.
Right. There's probably like some audio, like I'm not using that term air, like in an EQ sense, because that is specifically referring to like the higher frequencies.
Okay.
But like, it just like, it feels like there's things that could fall through.
It's porous.
Yes, it's porous. Whereas like that first album, like sonically, it's like nothing's getting through there. You know.
Right.
But yeah, I loved it. So
cool.
I could rattle off a whole bunch of things that I liked about it, but overall, man, I just love the way that the record made me feel to listen to.
Yeah. There is, I think I've said a few times on these recordings, like one of the things that gets me about some of the music that I love, or that gets me to love certain music, is the vibe. Huge.
Yeah.
I'm a huge vibe guy. What can I say? And this album, like when I heard it, it was weird in certain ways because it's very strange in some ways. But every single one of them added to this vibe that this album carries.
Right.
And it's just, it's got an intense. I haven't really thought of what to describe it as, but it's like, it feels like a goth sort of metal album.
Right. Without
I don't know how to...
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. Like it feels that way, but it doesn't quite.
Like on paper, I wouldn't say these guys play goth metal, but hearing this album, you're like, that is fucking goth metal.
Right. It's like this makes me feel the same way.
Yeah, there you go.
This makes me feel very similar to how like Paradise Lost makes me feel and shit like that. But this is.
Yeah.
There's so many things that are different.
Yeah.
And I guess like that is the other thing too. So so here's like sort of some overarching observations that I made. I said I really appreciate how straightforward yet unique, heartfelt, and hook laden each one of these songs are.
Totally.
Like each song is very unique.
Yeah.
And has its own identity, but it still feels all of it still it all still felt like all of it needed to be said. Like whoever's writing these songs, like I wrote this because I had to write it. It has that feeling to me. And for them all to have their different, it feels like they all have a different hook, and the hook isn't always a vocal melody line.
Yeah.
It often is, but it isn't always.
Right.
There's a minimal quality that I dig as well. You can hear every element. Yeah, it feels like there's a lot. And then this is something else that's interesting that I thought. There's almost like a nostalgia for the 90s in these songs.
Yeah.
Like it's like this is to sort of 90s mainstream rock or industrial metal as synthwave is to 80s stuff in a way.
I can see that comparison.
Because there's, like the riffs that they use, the samples, the kind of grooves, some of the vocal approaches. Like there's even, like in the song War, around like the 120 mark, there's even like a Lane Staley. Like there's one of those in there.
Yeah.
There's some riffs that feel almost like they could have come off a Les Exorcisto.
Or like an Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's something I felt, I think, but didn't really dig much into, but that's totally correct. The vocals on this album are so fucking weird, and I really like it.
So I looked up a live video of them,
Yeah.
them like live in a studio, and he was, I think, using like a pitch shifter effect.
I would buy that.
I can't tell when I'm listening to it. Are those vocals like multi-tracked?
I'm gonna say yes, and I'm gonna say they're shifted down.
Okay.
Because I can't imagine anyone actually sounding like this at all times. Because it is very like it's at the same time like a high like a yowl.
Right.
But also it's incredibly deep and low.
Right.
And that's like doesn't seem very natural. I mean somebody could sound like that.
Right.
But if you just look at a picture of these folks,
Yeah.
like they don't really sound like they seem like they sound like that. So I would buy it being just like a strictly stylistic choice done in production.
Gotcha.
I don't know for sure though.
Right. And let's see.
But there are like a lot of weird vocal patterns and like affectations and stuff. I think it's in I can't remember which song it is, but it's like the chorus is like, you say Get all away, run away.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
What are you doing? But I kind of like it, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, something about it works. I don't know.
There was one of the songs too that like the harmonies and stuff, the way that it was done almost gave me this similar, almost like an indie folk vibe, like in a good way, like Fleet Foxes or something, but or almost even Baroness, the way that Baroness uses vocals and harmonies.
Yeah.
And there's a few like 80s drum machine sound, or like a few like
Yes.
like from like Pretty Hate Machine.
God, what a weird choice to make. Because they just take the sample from the line that they were just saying, and they goes,
Yeah.
It is very Pretty Hate Machine, yeah. Oh man, it's such a there are so many weird little quirky choices like that just like one-off things that they throw in a song.
Right.
It's like, why not? But somehow it all works together.
Right. So there was this one. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah. So this one, it has those sounds on the beginning.
Yeah.
So Max heard this in the car.
It was like a siren or something.
He was like, what's that noise, Daddy? What is that noise, Daddy? I was like, it's just the music. Daddy music? Yeah, sure. And he's like, okay. And then like the next, and then like later on after the song's over, he's like, hey, Daddy, can we hear the Daddy music again with the sound? With the funny sound? So he got a kick out of there's a sound coming out of the music place that, for coming at me the way that music does, but it doesn't sound like music.
Right.
So
Okay.
he got a kick out of that.
Oh, that's funny.
Novelty of
man.
that. So another funny thing. So the song Punishment. So the drums on this pissed me off
Oh yeah.
at first. Yeah. Made me mad as fuck. Because in the verse, the snare is on 4. So it's like 1, 2, 3, bow 1, bow 1, and I wasn't listening to it super loud, and so I had that thing where you're like, I am not feeling this music in the right place, and I had to like turn it up, and I was like, this is fucking stupid. So that's how I know. This is how I know how you don't have a fucking full-time drummer. This is you stupid ass. But then as I listen to it, I'm like, this is pretty fucking cool.
That's great.
And
I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, I'm hearing it. Like,
yeah. And the way that they put the drum beat together in the 6/8 part in the intro is also really cool. There's like an accent on the 2, which is unique, and it was just put together in a really, really cool way.
Yeah. I wonder, now that you say that, I wonder if that is something that sort of stems from them not being drummers, but having to have a drum track. And the sorts of decisions that a non-drummer will make.
Oh yeah, there's a rich history of people of like songwriters with drum machines or just like a non-drummer sitting down at the drums and getting the track done for their like Stevie Wonder or
and just the things that they end up doing.
Right, where they don't think like a drummer.
Right.
Because the way that a drummer thinks is a drummer thinks in terms of time. 1, 2, 3, like time and pulse. And that's how a drummer thinks, and everything around that is sort of ornamentation around that and guiding things through there. But guitarists tend to might think more melodically, or more about like the riff.
Yeah.
Right. Gun 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 gun, and like that's it. That's all that's going on. That's what makes like Lars's drumming so interesting, because he doesn't think like a drummer. He almost thinks more like a guitarist who plays the drums. The riff is all he's fucking listening to. That's all he cares about. And so everything he plays on the drums is just different ways of moving in and out of the riff. That's why his drumming is so interesting.
Huh.
and why it's so like, like I'm making this like list of songs I want to cover, and and it's like, I don't want to fucking play Battery, like it's too hard.
Yeah. That song's ridiculous.
And I'm like, yeah, Nile, I'll play Nile instead.
But not Battery.
But just
was Lars a guitarist? Do you know?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. But that's his concept.
That's just how he thinks.
Yeah. Because he's not thinking like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, ba ba. He's not thinking like that. Like
right.
He's just thinking the riff, And so I think it makes for it's frustrating. You get a lot of flack. You get a lot of pushback from drummers because it's really difficult to think differently. And approach and that's the thing, is like a fucking guitarist can like sit down and can like do good drums for a fucking minute. They can't like play the whole band set and make the whole thing fucking work, but they can play a cool drum part. And so it's so fucking frustrating as a drummer to try to, to like be expected to assimilate all that and then to make it work too.
Right.
So
I feel like I've probably done that in some of the like electronic music that I've written, because I definitely do not know how to think like a drummer and do not do that.
Right.
And I definitely have approached some of the like percussive elements in a melodic way.
Yeah.
So
right.
Yeah.
Right. Which is it's only ever really frustrating, like when it comes to working with other musicians or working with guitarists and whatnot. It's only ever really, really frustrating whenever they are, how to say it? Like when they're looking at their like little, like their 4-chord song that they wrote, and maybe a track that they programmed, a drum track they programmed it for, and they're looking at it like it's a fucking classical piece of music, and like everything that they put in every place that they put it,
this is how it must be done.
Yeah, has utmost significance, and
right,
and was made with the has like the best, and it's like, let me. Yeah, I don't.
So, I mean, to push back on that a little bit, I think that's just because how the reason I would write a drum track the way that I would, a percussive track for like one of my electronic tunes or whatever, is because I want it to sound the way that it does, the way that I wrote it.
Yeah, and if that's how you want it to sound, you don't need me.
Exactly. Like that, there's a weird trade-off there. Like, your job isn't to come in and play the thing in your mind. That's not what a drummer does. A drummer comes in and has a feel and lays the time down, right? Like,
I come in to make the music work.
Yeah. Whereas what somebody writing something from melodic, it doesn't have to just be melodic, but from my experience, a melodic perspective is like, you want the thing to sound like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like playing a cover song and playing the exact right notes versus a general, like, an approximation.
Versus getting the vibe.
Something that works.
Yeah.
In any context.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas, like, as a drummer, I feel like my job is to come in, look at the song as a whole, look at the overall story, look at the overall dynamic story of the song, and fill in all those gaps and make all those transitions smooth, and to sort of guide the song so that it hits all the places and all the emotional notes and dynamic notes that it needs to hit. How loud does this, how intense is this bridge compared to the first verse, and how different, and what thread can I use to tie all of it together, so on and so forth. But when someone, so in a hypothetical bad session, like what I'm talking about, would be someone who has programmed the drums, understands that it isn't quite working,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know what it needs to make it work, wants me to put drums on it, but doesn't want me to do what I think it needs to make it work.
Right. It's like a situation where they don't know what they want, but they know what they don't want.
They don't know what they want.
Like whatever you do, it's just like, no, I don't. That's not quite right.
Yeah.
But like, well, what do you want me to do? Well,
Not that.
yeah,
Something
right.
else.
Yeah.
And so, but they're also like, I mean, I get it, because they've spent a lot of time with just this thing, and they're used to hearing it just this one way.
Yeah.
And now they're just going to let some ramshackle asshole like throw all these fucking drums, these fucking loud, stupid, barely instrument fucking things all over their fucking pristine art, you know?
Yeah.
And so I get like the conflict, or I get like why that would be challenging. But at the same time, it's just like, you know, you called me, man.
Yeah. Like, what are we doing here?
You know,
really?
like, if you don't want real drums, that's fine. But what I thought was interesting, so to bring it back
Right.
to Grave Babies, the live footage I saw was like just a regular ass drummer doing regular ass drummer shit.
Huh. Cool.
Like he's not even trying. He's not even trying to like replicate the patterns. You know what I mean? He's just playing on a regular fucking drum kit, just doing regular ass fucking drummer shit. It sounds great. It still works. It's still like the same songs. And I honestly, I feel like that's like a good example, because if you as a drummer were to like just play like because it, you know, like with a band on stage, I mean, that might work if the rest of your band is badass and the rest of your band can keep really good fucking time. But all this, you know, all that hi-hat shit, all that stuff you do in between, so much of that is to just like make sure that
Keep things together. It's
Yeah.
Cohesion, yeah.
Like that's so much of what the fucking drummer's job is.
That's
You
true.
know.
Yeah.
So
I'll have to go find footage of that then. That sounds pretty interesting.
it's good.
Hadn't found any yet.
But yeah, okay, so a few questions for you about this record.
Yeah.
How did you hear about this record?
I was recommended it from a friend, and it was like, here's something that's cool. I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And sure enough, I liked it quite a bit.
Were you like immediately into it? Did it take a while to grow on you?
No, it was like first listen. First listen, it was there.
You're fucking on, and you're like,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And yeah, like one of the complaints that Fantano had about this was like they're just doing this like droning, repeating thing in the song on and on. I'm like, that's the fucking point. It's called On and On, and they're droning, and that's the kind of band this is.
I mean, how fucking drone can you get in a song that's like less than 4 minutes long?
Yeah. Also that. Yeah. It's still.
It's 4.5 minutes.
Okay.
I guess
okay.
compared to their first
It's basically
record,
an epic then.
I guess compared to their first record, maybe that's a long song.
Maybe. It's
Okay.
anyway.
And so what do you like about it? I mean, we've kind of already touched on this. But
Yeah,
is there anything that we didn't?
Not really. It's the weirdness, but it all works. Because I got to thinking about like that. Whenever I think about this album, I'm like, it's a weird album, because it's kind of a strange album in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's specifically like the vocals and some of the choices they made around like some of the sonic aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, let me think about like some of the other weird stuff I like Primus comes to mind. But this has I don't know where I was going with that exactly. But yeah, the sort of weirdness and the overall vibe, like the feel that it gives you of being that sort of goth feel.
Right.
But also being something different.
Gotcha. So, I feel like the thing that is, I can't really put Les Discrets in with these two records, in with Grave Babies and October Rust, but there is something common to me to both of these, and it's there's sort of a masculine sadness. is how I would describe it. That was
Okay.
I'll talk more about that, I'm sure, when we talk about the typo record. But
Okay.
that was something that was very important to me
Mhm.
about this record and how I think it functioned. How about October Rust and how it functioned for me. But I think that like that is like the emotional node that it's touching. That is, because it's sad. There's a longing to it.
Mhm.
But it's not, it's still, with Grave Babies, it's still sort of obtuse and distant enough to sort of not be terribly vulnerable, I guess, or to not be, that might not be the
Or
right
it's
word.
not being as like forthcoming with their
Yes.
with their vulnerabilities.
Yeah, in the Grave Babies record. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
I can see that.
and so I don't know exactly what elements that you can do about it to make that sadness feel masculine, right? But I know what it isn't, and what it isn't is like Dashboard Confessional, which I like. I like some of their records, but there's something very different about someone crooning, on and and putting this in weird production. There's something very different about that than someone with their like acoustic guitar, singing in an emo voice about like your hair is everywhere kind of thing, and like just screaming so intensely and so literally about like a breakup.
Yeah.
And maybe whenever you're full of a sufficient amount of masculine bullshit, you think that you're too good to be upset over something that is that direct, and you need to balloon it up into an existential crisis, perhaps. You're too proud to just say like, no, man, she broke up with me and I'm really sad. Like you're like, no, I'm questioning the nature of existence and the futility of war.
So, question though, what specific aspects of the Grave Babies album strike you as like masculine specifically?
I don't know. Well,
Nothing like just sort of an overall.
I mean, like, there's elements in there that track is like metal, right?
Yeah. Okay.
There's a certain obtuseness to it. There's a certain like invulnerability to it. And so it's a guy singing.
I think they're all guys. I don't actually know.
I think there's a girl keyboard player.
Okay. I've seen one picture of like some of them.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't know for sure.
It's like cropped out.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and I just like.
Was it lyrical content at all? Because I haven't read any of the lyrics to
I
these
tried
songs.
to find the lyrics and I couldn't.
Really?
I
Not
was
even
kinda-
like Genius or anything?
No, I was kind of, maybe I didn't
No shit.
do a good job, but cause that's all I want to do. I wanted to, but listening to them, it's like, oh yeah, this is sad shit.
Sure, yeah. That's a feeling you can get from just hearing the album.
Right. And I guess like maybe the masculine aspect of it, let me try to think this through. I'm not quite as lucid as I normally am because the primary thought that's in the front of my head is like, don't cough directly in this fucking microphone. That's the main thing. That's all I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, you can edit it in post.
But I think that so the masculine aspects of it, I guess that can mean different things in different situations.
Yeah, I don't have a great preconceived notion of what I'm asking about here. I'm just like,
Yeah, no, it's a good prodding, right? To figure out because for me to figure out what exactly I mean, and I think that
because I also don't think you're wrong.
I think in the Grave Babies, what's masculine about it is its hidden nature. Okay, I'm gonna tell you what I'm feeling with these. This is it with these vocals, but they're gonna sound fucking weird. They're gonna be pitch shifted and they're gonna be low in the mix. So you're not. It's going to be kind of difficult to hear what I'm actually saying. I'm not gonna just. I can't just come out and say like, I'm sad, and your hair is everywhere.
Right.
Bleeding infidelities, something, whatever. I'm not making fun of you, Chris Carrabba. I really love some of your records, but just as an example, on one side of the spectrum of like a dude who's just gutsy and courageous enough to be like, this is exactly how I feel. It's exactly what I'm upset about.
Yeah.
And how that stands in contrast to the way that men express their emotions in other forms of music or songwriter. I mean, not to be a man, but songwriters, right? And so I think that when I say masculine for the Gray Babies, that's what I mean. Is I'm gonna take and I'm gonna,
You're gonna like sort of put a drape something over this. You're gonna like put a sheath over it.
Well, think about All Severed, right? Like like the last All Severed record we did, I was trying to be as vulnerable as I could, but in order for me to do that, we had to put it inside of this crazy fucking complicated music that's constantly changing time. So you're trying to just scream my fucking head off.
Right.
Because I couldn't just say like I am incredibly sad and anxious and upset every day, and I feel the walls closing in on me all the time, and it hurts so bad, and I'm so scared that sometimes I'd just rather die.
Right.
Like I didn't know how to like.
Right.
I got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was too caught up in needing to track as masculine. Like it's like, come fucking watch me beat the shit out of these drums and scream into this microphone and tell me I'm not a fucking man.
Right.
Like I might be lonely. I might be crazy. I might kill myself later, but I'm a fucking man.
You can't listen to this music and say that I'm not a fucking
And
right.
Look at how angry I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I think there's a certain amount of detachment, I think, in music, or a certain amount of barriers that are going to what allows something to track as masculine to me in this sort of framework that I'm using.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I hadn't. I guess I hadn't engaged with it on that exact level necessarily, but the thing that I think that most, if I had asked 10 other people that question, I am willing to bet that what 8 of them would have said was, well, the vocals sound very deep.
Oh, sure.
And one of the things about this album that like kills me in a weird way is that it sounds like they've done that. They have done that purposefully. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's very obvious that they're doing that purposefully. But it almost sounds like they're doing that and it becomes farce. It almost sounds like it's theater. Like it's music. Like it's to a certain point.
No, I understand what you mean by that word theater. Like
it's theatrical.
Yeah, it almost becomes satirical, or like almost like a.
It's almost like he's playing a character at some point.
Right. Almost it becomes sort of like so out there, because that's a big in metal in general. That's like a big problem. Is it's like how do you negotiate the I guess the kind of like the kayfabe of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you don't want to be the guy that looks like you're pretending to be crazy on stage. You don't want to be David Draymond. You don't want to be that guy. Like you either need to like channel 1995 Jonathan Davis,
right?
Or you need to be like really detached. I'm not getting emotional. I'm just trying to hold back coughs.
Yeah, well,
really detached. Like I think about like death metal stage presence. Like it's very stoic. There's lots of headbanging and whatnot, but it's very stoic.
Yeah.
As opposed to, but But yeah, like what you're saying about the vocals reminds me of like a band that had way too much stage presence, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Like they come
Yeah.
out and they're doing backflips and they're doing this and they're jumping off of everything and the song hasn't even started yet.
Okay. Right.
And it's like, oh, the music isn't making you do this. That you just want to be perceived a certain way.
Mm.
You know.
Right. Okay. Yeah. For me, the thing, like, that's how the vocals on here strike me, but that's kind of the only thing on here that strikes me that way. And I like it in the context of this album. Like, I think they just do a weird thing and it really works.
I loved it.
So yeah, I'm way into it.
Yeah, same.
Man, quick tangent though.
Please.
Speaking about like bands being on stage and being stoic and not really engaging sort of with their audience in a way. To me, one of the prototypical examples of that has always been Tool.
Yeah.
They stand there in their places and they stand back. Maynard's in the back of the stage in the dark,
Right.
and they play their songs, and that's it. They've gone on tours since like a couple months, a month or so ago, I think.
I think so.
They're back out on tour. I think it's the first tour since Fear Inoculum came out, because that came out right at the beginning of the pandemic, or right during, or something. I forget what exactly. And what's weird now, because their last album came out in 2006.
Right.
It was 10,000 Days. And now everybody has phones and shit to record on. And back in the day, they were absolutely a band. You cannot find live footage of them much at all from any of their previous tours. Like, it's very, very rare that you find, especially good live footage. You can find a video of the entire show of damn near all of their shows from this tour. And for some reason, I started getting recommended them recently. And it's really interesting to watch them not be that way anymore to a certain extent. Like, they're like engaging a bit more with the audience and each other.
Interesting.
And you watch like Justin Chancellor, the bass player, he's just like up there grooving and like talking to people, like interact. It's really weird to watch them do that.
Yeah.
And Maynard still does his like back of the stage thing, but he's not like in the dark necessarily anymore. And he's just doing his thing. And they, did you like Fear Inoculum?
I listened to it like probably twice at your behest, and
okay.
I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. I didn't.
Okay. You haven't listened to it very much, is what I was going to get at.
No.
Okay. I absolutely love that album. There's a track later on in it called Culling Voices, and it starts out as a sort of softer thing, and it doesn't get too much crazier than that. But a couple of shows that I've seen of them on this tour, they all, like, the lights come up and they all sit in the middle of the stage, and Danny is playing a guitar.
What the fuck?
Even. And Maynard's just sitting there next to them, like kneeling down, doing his vocals during this. And it's such a weird fucking thing to see.
That's so cool.
Because that's exactly the opposite of what you think of when you think of Tool's live show. Because it's exactly that death metal, like, stoicism. It's like, we're here, but you be there, and we're going to do our thing, and then we're going to leave. Is what it was every time I've...
Oh, yeah. Well, they almost have, I mean, even less so than death metal, because there's a lot of audience engagement with death metal bands, but you know, Tool was almost like a classical concert.
Yeah.
In a sense of like we are here to administer this music.
Right.
We're not playing. Children play. I'm not playing for you.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, in that vein, it's been fascinating to see all these concerts, and it's just really cool.
That's awesome.
They fuck up from time to time, and it's like, oh man, I fucked up. It's funny. It's cool.
Right. That's cool. That it reminds me of the first band that I saw do it was Foo Fighters, and then later I saw Rammstein do a similar version of it in in an arena show like Toyota Center, where like in the middle of the concert, like a bridge drops down or whatever, and they go out to a small stage sort of behind the soundboard.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And like they're all on top of each other.
Like they're kind of playing for the people back there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
And they're all like, well, it was different. It was, it's done 2 different ways, but similar vibe. Like the Rammstein stage was like, I mean, it was fucking super tiny out there, and so they're all on top of each other.
Plus, there's like 9 of them or whatever. Is there only 6? I guess so. Yeah, that's true.
And it's just like a real simple drum kit, and they did like a few songs there, just, and it was really fucking cool. But the first band I saw do it was the Foo Fighters, in like 2008. Saw them at Toyota Center, and they came out, like they had like this long walkway, right, that went out, and then excuse me, and then like in the middle of the show or 2/3 in, then like a stage drops from the top, like a small stage drops from the top that's like behind the soundboard, and they walk out there and they do like a short, like 30, like an acoustic set.
Oh, that's so cool.
Like a 30-minute acoustic set.
That's such a cool idea.
It was.
I've never seen that.
So amazing. But yeah, like what you're saying about, like, that's just such a cool thing. It's just such a cool vibe. Like, we're gonna mix this shit up, right? Like, we're gonna, because when you think about like, these are things that I always wanted to play with, and I haven't quite had the medium to figure out ways to do it. But we all sort of like the drums are there and the guitars are there, and this is how this has to go, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
Like I remember reading in college about like, like Sun Ra, like, a free jazz, originator. It might not have been him, might have been someone else, but they would have like different performers like spaced out throughout the fucking venue. So like in the middle of a song, like a dude in the corner would pull out his fucking saxophone and start ripping, but it's coming from the back of the club,
right,
or coming from the side, or coming from, what I mean? And we think of these things as being, well, it has to be this way, and it doesn't. And so like I always like it whatever the stage setup is, if the drums like aren't dead fucking center, like put that shit off to the side, put it somewhere else. Just be fucking different. You know? Cool.
But yeah.
Nice. I'm that man, yeah. I liked that record. I liked listening to it.
It's long. It's an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to get into. Like
I kind of felt the same way about listening to it. It was like, yeah, like this will be a good thing for people who listen to Tool and don't listen to like Indian music also. Like, but if you like also listen to ragas and shit, you might not need this.
Well, I don't listen to ragas, I guess, so maybe I need this.
Yeah, I mean, it was very good. I really enjoyed listening to it.
It's one of my favorite albums in a long time.
That's awesome.
I really like it a lot.
That's awesome. Nothing makes me happier than for someone who is like, yeah, man, my favorite Nile record is the last fucking one that came out.
Yeah, right. Because how many bands can you say that about, really? Like, very few.
Right, yeah. Like, maybe it's not your favorite, right? But just that you just fucking... Whenever I run into someone who says that, I feel like I'm going to be friends with you because you're not an asshole that's attached to your past.
Right.
Sure. You don't get mad whenever, like, oh, this doesn't make me feel the way that this other band stuff made me feel when I was 13. Motherfucker.
Yeah.
So. No, actually, I had a really weird, random conversation. So, I bought a punching bag, and I drove up to Spring to get it, and I ended up talking with this dude for like fucking 45 minutes because I somehow, whatever, we ended up, somehow music got brought up, and so it turns out he's like a metalhead too. He's like fucking in his 50s, and he was like, oh, I've been listening to Testament since, 1984, and stuff like that. And Lamb of God is the best. And so and he's like, I went and saw Tool a few nights ago, and they were so good. And so we had like this great, and it was just so cool to talk to like a really open-minded 50-year-old that was like, they played some of their newer, like more out there stuff, which is cool. But they also played this, they also played that, and
Right.
It was a great show.
Right.
And then to just like talk about how amazing Lamb of God was. Like he just talked about how amazing Lamb of God was for like 10 minutes.
Nice.
I was like, shit, I haven't listened to Lamb of God in a while. And I went and listened to it. I was like, God damn, yeah, fucking Lamb of God is so
he
good.
was right.
I forgot how good Lamb of God was.
God, yeah.
Yeah. I was going back and listening to a little bit of that. And I don't think that Chris Adler, just because Chris Adler didn't do blast beats, I don't think that he quite gets the credit that he deserves. Because that motherfucker raised the bar. Seriously raised the fucking bar.
Yeah.
And
I'm not even a drummer, and I will agree with that statement.
Man, I'm not gonna say anything.
I don't know. I think it's because he didn't do blast beats to a certain extent that he's like that his drumming on those albums is so incredible. Because he does so much.
I guess like what I mean is that I think that that's why, like if you do like a temperature check, like right now metal, like who's like most influential metal. Yeah, or like who's the most influential metal drummers the past 20 years. I don't think that Chris Adler's going to be where he should because he didn't really do blast beats. But like Mario from Gojira will be there, Joey will be there.
Yeah.
Inferno from Behemoth, George Callias, like those guys will be in there. But it's
interesting.
Yeah, whatever. That's a whole other topic. But goddamn, Chris Adler's so fucking good.
Yeah.
All right, I guess we should talk about Typo Negative.
Well, we should talk about Typo Negative. Well, yeah, we should.
Yeah, man. Here we are. This is probably going to be the meat of it.
So you picked October Rust.
October Rust.
October Rust.
It's our new record, October Rust. Yeah. So I have so much to say. I don't know where to start, so I'm just going to kind of let you guide this.
Oh, okay. I don't know if that's such a good idea. Because I don't have nearly the history or sort of anything with this album. I have very little history with Typo Negative on the whole. But they're always a band that I've known about. Like, I heard them back in the 90s.
Right.
When we were, like, getting into metal and stuff, and they were always there.
Right.
But it was always a thing that sounded like it wasn't quite what... It never sounded like the stuff that I was into quite.
Yeah.
But it was always like, that sounds pretty cool.
Uh-huh.
And the first time I really got into one of their tracks was when you bought Megadeth's Risk. It came with a bonus disc.
Oh, no.
Of all this other... It was like 25 songs. And I found a lot of bands through that disc.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember those sample disc days, man.
Yeah.
Those were good days.
There was a ton of shit on there. It was really cool. But one of the songs was Creepy Green Light from World Falls Down.
Coming Down.
World Coming Down, sorry. Yeah. And like I specifically remember, like, I like the song, just straight up. But I remember in the context of that album, that sampler pack specifically, like the production on that song was like miles beyond anything else. And that's one of the things about Typo Negative that I have always adored.
Very unique
is
production.
The production and like just the tone. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
Yeah, so I think... I thank God I took good notes because I'm kind of on this weird autopilot right now. We actually talked about this a few episodes ago because I I'd been listening to it a lot, and I had discovered that all the drums on here were programmed,
Yes.
and it blew my fucking mind.
Yeah.
Seems to be one of the themes of the albums today, programmed drums.
Yeah, right.
There are some recorded drums on the Les Discrets album, but
Not all.
not all, no. There's like maybe 3 tracks, I think, that have real drums. But okay, but yeah, this is what I wrote down about October Rust. It's like, this record is so ingrained in my experience that it's hard for me to see it from the outside in any way. Like I just accepted this as is. And I think that October Rust came out in 96. Bloody Kisses, I think, came out in 93. And so Bloody Kisses was the first gold record on Roadrunner, I believe.
Wow.
So Typo Negative was the first really big moneymaker band on Roadrunner. And there were so many bands that we were fans of that were on Roadrunner. We were going to also be exposed to Typo Negative. There's no way around it, right? And so, you know, I bought this stuff because it was like, oh man, it's in the fucking magazines and and Bloody Kisses is amazing, incredible. It's one of the best records ever fucking made.
That green tint on that album is really something, isn't it?
It's very important, right?
It took a long time.
And so, you know, there was this, I sent you a Revolver video that was like 13 things or 10 things you didn't know about Bloody Kisses. And they hit something really important, I think, about Typo Negative right out of the gate, which was they talk about like this, like, don't mistake a lack of talent for genius. And then you like open it up. And then somewhere in here is this, like, you know, this record is for those who have, you know, loved and had their heart unaesthetically. Yeah, this entire opus is respectfully dedicated to all those who have loved unconditionally only to have their hearts unaesthetically ripped out. Base not your joy upon the deeds of others, for what is given can be taken away. No hope equal no fear. Peter. And so... And he said something that like really clicked in that video. And he said, equal parts Edgar Allan Poe and Beavis and Butthead. And
I don't even remember that quote. How did I miss that?
And so like the first track on here on Bloody Kisses is like, it's called Machine Screw. And it's like, you know, oh, this is a girl having sex. You know what I mean? And so, like, if you hear this when you're 12, this would be like, oh, well, this band is clearly the coolest band that's ever fucking existed. And then, like, track 4 is Fay Ray Come Out and Play. Fay Ray was who was in, you know, the actress in the original King Kong movie. So if you're a fucking nerd like me, you're going to be like, okay, clearly this is the coolest guy.
Clearly someone made this for me.
For me, exactly for me. But yeah, so I got this because it was just in the water, right? And then October Rust came out and it was the new Typo. Well, I guess I got to get it, right?
Yeah.
And I got it and I listened to it and I just accepted it as is. And then go back and listen to it like with critical ears. So for me, this is an album that I can listen to anytime. All the time, on repeat. You can start it at any, drop that needle in any place. I don't care. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so going back and listening to it this week with some critical ears, it was like, this is a goddamn weird fucking record. This is so weird. This is such a weird fucking album. But as a kid, because I heard it when I was so young, that I just accepted it as is. And I was like, yeah, well, clearly you can do whatever you want. And so I think that, but I think that what drew me to it, why it continued to hold such a place for me, why it found a spot and stayed, because there were lots of records I got that I listened to and maybe even liked at the time, but they didn't stay with me for 25 years.
Right.
But I know initially this one probably really found its hooks because this was sad man music.
Yes. If you look that up in the dictionary, you will see Peter Steele's indifferent face.
Yeah. And I think that was because I was a very sad person. I was a very sad young man, but I also had all this baggage where I really, really needed to be seen as a man also. So I needed I needed a record like this because, and it's interesting, I didn't really think about it until what you said earlier about like the vocals in Grave Babies being low. But listen to Peter still singing. Look at him. Look at that fucking dude.
No one's bigger and no one's lower.
Like, say that dude's not a man. And what's interesting is it's, you know what I mean? Because the lyrics on here are so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like, almost to a fault. Like, almost it's like, yeah, because that is what stupid guys actually think.
It's almost farcical.
But we're too afraid, but most people are too afraid to say it. But that is, you know, like, what was it? Be My Druidess?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, yeah, we'll talk about that one later. So my note about Be My Druidess was, how about a fucking bass line to carry a whole damn song? That was the first thing I wrote. Great bass line. So the lyric I'm going to talk about, you probably...
I'll do anything to make you come.
That's the one.
Oh, man.
So what I wrote down here was, I suppose we have to talk about that lyric.
Uh-huh. Boy, that just, yeah. Wow.
Wow.
Oh,
are we going to talk about my girlfriend's girlfriend now?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
He just likes lesbians.
So.
Says the Revolver video.
So this line, I'm going to lean into this. I'll do anything to make you come. Okay. I'm going to lean into this. So it reminds me of like fragile, raw, vulnerable, unhealthy masculinity. Because another aspect of masculinity is like control, right? Okay, I'm fixing to go off in the weeds. Trigger warning. Trigger warning, okay? It's kind of an inverse of how some idiot men see sexual assault. Okay, I heard someone told me this story once about being like in this, you know, I don't know, whatever you call it, like a gathering of Taoist students, whatever the name of that is, where you're studying Taoism and you have like a Taoist guy who's leading it.
Okay.
And
a flock.
Yeah. Yeah, so somewhere between like a sermon and a therapy session, I guess.
Okay. Right.
And so this girl was talking about being sexually assaulted. And
out loud to the people there.
Yes. Okay. Like as in like a group thing, right?
Right.
And talks about this to the you know, the guy, the priest or the leader or the whatever, the Tao distributor, the Tao administrator. And so sorry, I said it, trigger warning. And he says, well, did you come? This guy asked her that. And the person who was telling me this, like, told it to me like with a chuckle, and told it to me with like, you know, as you know, like a way to like change her story, you know, like it's like, no, man, like her story was that she didn't consent to something. And so
why would you want to change the story?
Because you're an asshole.
It was the story.
Yeah, because you're an asshole and you don't think women have a right to tell their own fucking stories.
What?
And so, but that is a good example the kind of bullshit, sexist bullshit you see like run, like that comes up in these kind of conversations, right? Where you see it in terms of like the legislation of like politicians who will say things of like, well, if you're not enjoying it, then you won't get pregnant, like that kind of shit.
I've never heard that one before.
Oh yeah, dude, like your body has ways of shutting things down. For real.
Okay. I'm not surprised,
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
clear, but
Yeah, I mean,
I've
this
just
is
never encountered that specific.
Yeah, it's not like a talking point, but it's things that elected officials have said. I don't
Oh, yeah,
know which one. But
Yeah, 100% believe that.
But, excuse me, so sorry. But what that's implying, right, is it's implying that regardless of if you consented or not, if your body enjoyed it on any level, then you really wanted it, and that person did you a favor.
Right. That's the implication there.
And so the inverse of that, right, or the opposite of that is that, so if someone receives pleasure, then it was an assault. So the inverse of that, right, is if someone doesn't receive pleasure, then it was assault.
Okay, yeah. All right.
And so that's where that kind of insecurity, that like, I'll do anything, because I have to function as a good lover to you, or I'm not a fucking man.
Okay.
And so it's to me, it exposes, Peter Steele and his like fucking massive vulnerability is like, I'm just going to fucking say this, So I think to me, that's what that line like points at, is it points at, like an unhealthy attachment of your being to your sexual performance, right? And that can be wrapped up in terms of masculinity and what it is to be a man and shit like that. Like as if like having sex with someone is just another opportunity to perform, and you'll see like, you'll see like that kind of stuff like floating around and like,
I mean, I think you're probably right. I think I would much sooner see it that way than I think the way that you could take it on its face if you just read the lyrics and didn't hear it in the song, which is just like, oh, you want to sound like a badass.
Right.
It's
yeah, because
shit. What's the word?
It doesn't feel like braggadocious.
There you go. Perfect. That's what I was looking for.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's not swagger to it.
Right. It's very like, I'll do anything. I'm almost scared and like, oh God, I have to do this.
Right.
That's the tone he goes for in that reading.
Right. And again, like I'm not saying that. I'm saying that Peter Steele is a master at articulating vulnerable masculinity, is what I am saying. I'm not saying that like Peter Steele's like thinking shitty shit or whatever.
Right.
That's all
exactly.
I'm saying.
That's what I thought you were saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Just to make that clear. But
right.
But then here's the other thing, right? Because of how like consistent the duality of typo is, because also what's another part of masculinity? It's indifference, it's distance, it's all this. And because of that Beavis and Butthead humor that they consistently throw throughout, it could just be like, this could also just be dismissed as like boyish sensationalism.
Sure. Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of part of the mastery of their presentation, is that there's enough like, fart jokes and whatnot, like spread throughout how they present, that they can say some very real and intense stuff, and it gets through. It gets through, I guess, to the people it's going to get through to, but everyone else is like, oh, he said come. But I feel like it's a really intense, vulnerable expression.
Yeah. It seems like with these guys specifically, it seems like the majority of what they're putting out there is that sincerity.
Yeah.
And you can kind of tell when it isn't that. Whereas, like, you know, if you mix, because those are sort of two polar opposite things that you're going for, the Beavis and Butthead and the, what was the other thing?
Edgar Allan Poe.
Edgar Allan Poe. Like, those are the two, like, there's very, very opposite expressions.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see a situation in which people could confuse one for the other if you don't do it right.
Right.
But it seems to me that the way that they do it is it's very, very clear what you're getting.
It's always right.
Yeah,
they always do it right.
They're always saying the right thing because they're always clear about what they're saying.
Right.
Or how they're saying it.
And I think that is the thing. And I guess it's because of like if you turn the dials and it's like, oh, well, there's like distorted guitars and Peter still has a deep voice. He's this big motherfucker. He's able to say exactly what he fucking feels. So another song that I love all these songs. Here's another great one that illustrates this point. So in Love You to Death, there's around the 5:11 mark, there's the Am I Good Enough?
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, is there a more vulnerable statement that someone can make other than Am I Good Enough? And you know, or like that idea.
Right.
You know, to me, like that's, I mean, maybe that's just me, but that feels like that is one of the most intense, like just grab right onto the nerve, you know, am I good enough? Am I enough? Will I ever be enough?
Right.
You know, it's like that's the things that fuck me up more than anything. You know, and so for him to, on the first fucking song of the record, to beautifully craft that, and the way that it climaxes, you know, it's just so beautiful and it's so vulnerable. And I don't know that I would have been able to accept it if it wasn't coming from a fucking, like, it's so bullshit. It's so fucking bullshit. Like, I would have been able to accept it if it wasn't coming. If it wasn't distorted guitars in there and fucking
The
6'7",
voice.
you know.
Dude who literally lifted weights before this performance.
Right. It's such bullshit.
I fucking love that song. I love a lot of the songs on this album, but
So had you ever really heard any of this?
I had heard a little bit of it here and there, but I'd never just sat down and listened to the whole album straight through. But man, this album's so fucking weird because it sounds. There are a lot of aspects of this album that you can tell it's from the 90s.
Like what?
Just chord progressions, like melodies and things like that. Weirdly enough, but by and large, it also sounds like it's like 20 years ahead of its time.
Interesting.
Because of the production values. Their production is so insane. Like the weird mid-heavy guitar tone that they use, but also the extremely heavy distorted bass and the processing on his vocals and the synth all in there at once. It just gives it this bizarrely focused but also really rounded, heavy sound. It's fucking amazing.
It's so unique.
It's great.
It's so unique. And I mean, who the fuck else was playing with keyboards?
Yeah.
At that fucking time. You know, and doing it as well as they do it.
Yeah. Yep.
And
I love their production so much. It's incredible.
That's so cool. And sorry. I kind of lost my train of thought. I'll do
anything.
So
to make you come. It's that cut off on
it's that snap.
Come. Oh man, good. Yeah, sure. Great.
But yeah,
be my druidess. It's just, oh man.
So okay, this is gonna just get kind of random, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I mean, we could always talk about the glorious liberation of the People's Technocratic Republic of Finland by the combined forces of the United Territories of Europa. What?
So I made a note about that. I was like, yeah, they weird.
Yeah.
So have you listened to Bloody Kisses? Are you familiar with Bloody Kisses at all?
I don't think so.
Okay. Incredible fucking record.
I might have heard something off of it, but no.
But there's a song on there called "Kill All the White People," and it's like and that's the thing is like that you don't really hear on this. Is they have like roots in like hardcore and shit.
Oh, okay.
So there's like straight up like fucking on this record. There's like straight up hardcore like D beats and shit.
Wow.
And like kill all the white people. You know,
damn,
like that kind of shit. And then we'll be free. You know, and so, but I went back and tried to, because I never listened to their previous records before Bloody Kisses, and I went back and I was like, let me kind of, you know, I didn't really listen to much after October Rust either. They're just consistently all over the fucking place. And it's amazing.
Consistently all over the place. It was good.
But yeah, that like glorious liberation of the blah blah blah. To me, that's like Peter's very unique sense of humor about that sort of thing.
I can see that.
And then there's something like really sarcastic and silly about like a bunch of white dudes from Brooklyn with fucking long black hair playing a song that says "Kill all the white people."
Right.
And then I think the first track on World Coming Down is called White Slavery. And you're like, uh-oh. And you look at the lyrics and like, oh, it's about cocaine. This is all about cocaine.
Oh, wow.
And but at the same time, it's like, you know, he knows what he's doing. You know, you do get that sense. It's like, well, Peter Steele was still alive. He'd probably be saying some dumb shit right now. Like we probably would have caught a dumb interview blurb from him by now. But since he tragically died so young, you know, we don't have that. But
that Revolver video, though, all of the points that they brought up were fantastic, though. And there's some weirdly like insightful things.
That's
some of those guys were saying.
Man, Josh Silver, the keyboard player, man, that dude.
Yeah.
That dude's on some shit, man.
Yeah.
I think he's like an EMT now. Like he doesn't fuck with music at all anymore.
Huh. Right on.
And so, and Kenny Hickey does a lot of the, I know he sings somewhere on this record, but he sings a lot on Bloody Kisses. And his voice is amazing. And it works as such a cool compliment to Pete's.
Cool.
But yeah, another one of my favorite ones always was, what is it? So Green Man, I was like, this exemplifies a few things. One is that I took this album as a given, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
Because of how early I heard it. But like, this is just a weird song. And it's just about a weird fucking thing. And it was just like, well, yeah, of course you could like write a song about like nature and shit. Why not?
Because he worked for the fucking Parks Department. I had no idea. I love that.
Right.
He was just like what was his job? Like it was like a ranger sort of thing?
I don't know, man.
But he didn't, that was one of the things in that video. It was like he didn't want to give up his job at the Parks Department to go out on tour.
Tour for Bloody Kisses.
For Typo Negative. He loved his job so much.
Right.
And he was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it work to be able to keep doing my job and then I guess he had to stop eventually. But
you get good benefits when you work for the Parks Department.
Fair.
Too.
Fair. But it's just like, I love doing this job. I'm like, wow, man.
Right. It totally,
Wow.
it was like, man, like that's like, that was really inspirational, like for me to hear recently.
Peter Steele, of all people, like this dude, look at him, listen to him. And he wants to do his fucking Parks Department
Like,
job.
is there ever like a better example of like, oh, that guy was born to be a fucking rock star?
Exactly.
And he's like, I would really rather just like keep these parks clean, write my songs at night,
yeah,
hang out with my cat.
Yeah. Wonderful.
leave me alone.
Let me do my thing.
Yeah. And another thing I wrote down here is Typo has always felt like a kind of a pure expression, devoid of too many influences, except other fundamental, like pure expression kind of bands like the Beatles and Black Sabbath. Like there's not, like you don't listen to Typo, at least not these records. And I mean, and maybe just not me, right? Because this is the other thing. I have a big blind spot. I don't know much about goth. I don't know much about 80s goth and Bauhaus and Cure and all that shit. I don't know. So maybe if I listened to that and was really familiar with that, something about Typo would just seem like the next step or something.
Some of those influences would be more apparent, probably.
Right. But to me, like they seem like a fucking island just off by themselves. And you know what I mean? In interviews.
Well, I think in the metal community, they kind of are still.
Right. And like Pete would say that his influences or his favorite bands were the Beatles and Black Sabbath. And you're like, yeah, I get that. And so, you know, and it was like, yeah, man. And it's just, whereas like a lot of my other favorite bands, like there's like a clear lineage. Like you see how Slipknot evolves from Slayer, Pantera, and Korn. You know what I mean? And death metal and stuff. Like you see where those things come from, or you see how Lamb of God evolves from, you know, Testament and shit like that. Typo Negative just seems to exist.
Yeah, they feel like a thing that they somehow got to that point and they just kind of stayed there and nothing really affected it too much one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just
I kind of see that as well.
And I guess it's I think it's the song Green Man too, and it's like, man, like that abrupt ending on there. It's like, can't write a good ending for that song. Fuck it, cut it off on the of 4, you know, like you know, like and that's like a good example of how this record flows, man, because this is a long record.
It's like an hour and a half or something.
It's not, well, it's on CD. It ain't that long, but yeah, like it's
pretty long.
It's like an hour and 10.
Okay.
I think. As much as the CD would hold, right? Because it was the fucking 90s, so you had to do that.
Right.
And so, but this record is a real journey. It has a real arc. It always feels interesting, you know. There's different kinds of songs happening in different, you know, because you're you know, like all of a sudden you get, you know, like you're going along and you have all this sort of stuff, and then you get something whimsical like Green Man or My Girlfriend's Girlfriend, or something really intense and depressing like Red Water, the Christmas song, you know. That one always fucked with me. Or, you know, something really novel like Wolf Moon, or something up-tempo like Cinnamon Girl, and it's just like, and all of this just weaves together.
Yeah.
And you get these weird fucking intro track, like they have like a joke track of like just noise at the beginning. And then have you ever heard a fucking album that's like, yeah, no, just turn the mic on. We're just going to talk about the album for a second.
Yeah.
Hello? Is this thing on? You know, I just want you, thanks for picking up our new record, October Rust. And then that's how the fucking ends too. Like you get to the end, it's like, well, I hope that wasn't too disappointing, you know.
It's almost like, what year was this? 96. It's almost like they heard Smash and said we should do that, but like our way.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, so sit back and relax.
Kick off your shoes. Put up your feet.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a.
Let's do a Typo Negative version of that.
Right. It's gonna be like sarcastic as hell.
Yeah.
I hope that wasn't too disappointing. Like their greatest hits is called The Least Worst Of.
Oh man,
This is
so good.
Bless these guys,
Perfect.
But yeah, and I mean, in the song Red Water, I was vibing with recently for obvious reasons. But I've always loved that song because it's just a sad but relatable story. And like, you know, like the stockings are hung, but who cares? Like, and it's just such a cool, there's just, I mean, that line to me, that line is so cool. There's just so much in that line. Like there's imagery, right? The stockings are hung, but who cares? There's an important thing though. You did hang them.
Right.
Right? Like you did it.
Right.
Like you're doing your best to fucking move on. Right? But what's the fucking point?
And there's also the aspect of like, you're gonna take the line from the thing we all know, and you're not even gonna try to match it up. You're just gonna care so little that you're gonna say who cares and not even fucking worry about it.
Right.
I don't have enough syllables. Who cares?
I didn't even think about it like that.
I love that.
But that, yeah.
And then like, yeah,
That's
you actually
great.
did hang them. Yeah, that's good.
You know, the table's been set for but 7. Last year I dined with 11. And it's just like, you know, yeah, cool, 7 and 11 rhyme, whatever, fuck. But there's just so much conveyed in that line. There's just so much meaning. And you really feel that loss, but you also feel this sense of doing everything you can to like claw forward because you still set the table.
Right.
You know? You lost 4 motherfuckers this year and you still made dinner. You still set the fucking table for who is left. And it's fucking beautiful to me. And it resonates particularly with me at the moment, in this particular season, but love it, you know. Girlfriend's girlfriend. So when I was younger, I just liked this song for like Beavis and Butthead reasons. Oh, your girlfriend's girl, you know. But now I listen to it and I'm like, man, what an incredibly well-written song.
Well, also in the Revolver video, the point did come up that he just likes lesbians.
Sure.
So there was that.
Yeah, right.
So maybe it can be both.
Oh yeah, I'm not trying to say those things are mutually exclusive.
All right.
I just I wasn't able to appreciate the songwriting craft when I was younger. It was like you could have said you could have named any song My Girlfriend's Girlfriend and I would have like liked it when I was 12 or 13 or whatever. But this is a really well put together fucking song. Die With Me. This is funny. It's like I still feel this song. I don't even know who I'm missing. I don't, you know, still I miss her. Like, I don't know who I'm missing, man, but I feel it.
You feel it.
You know?
Man.
And there's just so much. And the songwriting on here is really interesting too, because none of it really, well, there's very few songs that follow like a verse chorus kind of thing, but it's all really effective and really engaging. Like Burnt Flowers Fallen, it's a really pretty / sad song, and it's a good example of that. Mm-hmm. But it's really just like one theme / hook that has like a bunch of different ways to get in and out of it surrounding it. It's not like here's this hook and it's going to be the chorus. You know, it's just like a totally different way to approach songwriting and to approach things that way and to still have so many hooks and to still have it connect so easily or connect so well is just so fucking rare and so special. I'm just gushing over fucking this record, man.
It's wild. It's really something.
But yeah, I think that's all I had to say about it. I'm really glad that you liked it.
Yeah, I've just never I don't know, for some reason I've just never sat down and gave Typo like a real like let's just get into Typo Negative, you know what I mean? But everything I've ever experienced from them is just like that's good stuff.
And I wanted to sort of dig into the stuff they did before a little bit and the stuff they did after this because I hadn't really thought about it. I was like, I have fucking no idea.
Right. Do you know how many albums they did before Bloody Kisses?
One. Well, there are two. There's Slow, Deep, and Hard, and there's Origin of the Feces. But I think...
Great.
I think Origin of the Feces is like a live record or something. So let me double check that. But, I mean, you need to listen to this record.
Yeah, I will. I'll definitely do that.
Because it is just... Yeah, Origin of the Feces, second studio record. But the first track is like a rehash of the first track on Slow, Deep, and Hard. So I'm kind of confused.
Oh, okay. It could be like
I see.
A reworking.
This album was recorded in a studio, but produced to sound live by adding crowd noises, banter with a fictitious audience, and even a song stopping because the venue supposedly had received a bomb threat.
What? All right, well, I'm going to go listen to that too then.
This was done to simulate the controversy the band faced during the European leg of their Slow, Deep, and Hard tour. The band is known among fans for weaving this type of humor into their often gloomy music.
Perfect. Yeah, great. Yeah, great. Okay, I'm in.
Because I listened to it, I was like, this is a fucking live record. What the fuck? I thought this was their second record. So Bloody Kisses is their third then.
Okay.
How fucking ballsy. Like, our second record is we're just going to be a fucking, like, art asshole statement.
We're going to pretend that it's live and make it sound as though it's live. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. So, and I mean, there's the original album cover for it, and it's like someone spreading their butt cheeks.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
a big hairy man ass.
That's what that is.
So, you know, they were always what they were.
Is it like the edited cover?
Yeah, that one with like the skeletons and shit.
I think I've seen that one. Okay.
But
I will say I very much appreciate the album aesthetic that they always do.
we ripped it off for the All Severed CDs.
We did. Yeah.
Like,
you're right.
we like down to the fucking lyric layout
Oh yeah.
on Bloody Kisses. I remember I took this to fucking Justin. I was like,
Yeah,
does it
you're
look
right.
like this. Yeah, no, I took great inspiration from the Bloody Kisses.
Imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Fuck yeah, man. And I did get a chuckle out of like to hear that Pete still put so much effort into it.
Right,
And I was
yeah.
like, yeah, man, it fucking paid off. It's one of the best fucking like packagings ever fucking put out. And so
Can't argue with it.
but yeah, I feel like, so do you ever have this happen where you have an artist, you have an album that just means so much to you that you kind of don't need anything else from the artist?
I'm sure I do, but nothing is in my mind right now.
So I can think of a few instances where that happened, where I just got so into this one record that it just sort of becomes part of like my mental landscape to where I don't even fuck with what they do afterwards. Almost like as a like, this experience was too precious to me. I don't need to. So like the Mars Volta, like Deloused in the Comatorium.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible record. I don't need anything else.
Right.
Tom Petty, Wildflowers, my favorite records of all fucking time. I haven't listened to a note of music that Tom Petty has released since that record, which is stupid. I bet I'll love it, but you know, I don't know that I need more.
The second disc of Stadium Arcadium.
Fuck you. Fill them in on that.
Mm-hmm.
Tell that story for a second.
Oh God. So that album came out in level like 05 or something.
Or 6, I don't remember.
Yeah. And I don't know how we got on that topic or whatever. I've always liked the Chili Peppers well enough.
Same.
And I hadn't been too into their last couple. Like By the Way was like, eh. And then whatever was after that was like kind of eh also.
Well, Stadium Arcadium was after that.
I feel like there were two that I skipped. By the way, and something else.
There's Californication.
Right.
Then By the Way. Then it was Stadium.
And then it was Stadium? Okay. Okay. Anyway.
There might have been a greatest hits release or something.
Maybe it was after that then. Or I don't know. Anyway, Stadium Arcadium came out, and there were a ton of singles from it. But also, it's a double album. There's like 20 some odd songs.
Right.
And that album is a fucking banger from start to finish. Both discs. It's a 2-disc set.
There's 2 discs on there?
So I've heard. That album's... I haven't actually listened to it in quite a while, but I listened to it a lot around the time it came out. Really great album. And so I was like recommending it, I guess, or just talking it up or something. And you made the comment that, well, I've listened to the first disc. And I don't remember at the time if you said that's kind of all I needed right now, or you just never got around to it. But for a long time, you did not listen to that second disc.
I kind of still haven't.
I thought you said you had once.
Like once.
Okay.
Once or twice. You
haven't experienced it, but you were there once.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas I've listened to that first disc hundreds of times, and it has some of my favorite pieces, my favorite musical moments ever committed to tape. Some of my favorite songs. That song "Wet Sand" has like one of the best drum fills ever fucking recorded. Yeah, I have just an unequivocal gushing love for that first CD, and it's so weird that I'm just like, I don't need that second one.
I'm good.
Like
that's enough.
This is, yeah. I don't know what that is. I guess that's a weird fucking thing that I just have. But I think that's almost what has in the past kept me from,
going any further than
right. Because I bought World Coming Down when it came out. It's on my shelf, and I probably listened to it once, and I was like, this isn't making me feel the same way.
Right. Even if there's just like a hint of ambiguity there, you're like, I don't want to fuck it up.
Yeah, this isn't bad, but this isn't that very special, unique thing I got from October Rust, which is so precious and important to me.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But yeah. All right. So I guess we could talk about Les
Discrets for a bit.
So yeah, this record, I think it came out in 2017.
I think that's right, yeah.
And I don't think that there was a record I listened to more in 2017 than this one.
Warranted, I'm going to say.
So
this is a hell of an album. This is to me. This is kind of a one of a kind album too.
Really,
I've never heard anything else like this. Even their other albums, I've listened to all their other albums, and
it's very different.
It's good. It's all good.
It's good, yeah.
But it's not this.
Yeah. You ever fuck with Alcest?
Because of so I had it recommended to me a while ago, and I tried it out, and I was like, I don't know, and then I think a lot of people relate them back to.
They're very similar.
Yeah, they run in similar circles. I guess
not so much this record.
Definitely not.
But the first few Les Discrets records and Alcest's earlier stuff they're very much coming from the same place.
Yes.
Which I think that is something so interesting about this overall. Like if you look at what's similar about these three records besides drum machines, is that, this band starts off in kind of a, post black metal, black gaze, shoegaze kind of vibe. Whereas some of their, you hear there's double bass and
yeah.
You know what I mean? I think there's even some screaming vocals on some of their earlier records.
Yeah, a little bit.
And this record is more Portishead than anything. It's
yes.
It's there's it's trip hop.
Yeah.
Or I think that's what you call that genre.
It's much closer to that.
And so it's so interesting that they arrived there.
Yes.
From that starting point.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I did. I listened to their earlier stuff, and I do like it. And I did go listen to like Alsace.
I don't know how to say it.
I don't know.
Alcest.
Alcest.
Alka-Seltzer.
Alka-Seltzer.
Yeah, Alcest. A-L-C-E-S-T.
Yeah.
C-E-S-T. Yeah, C-E-S-T.
Yeah. And I guess I kind of went to it looking for maybe some of what's going on here, and there really isn't a lot of that.
No.
But what it is pretty damn good.
To me, it touches the same emotion. So yeah, like, well, and Alcest has done a lot.
Yeah.
I think actually the last time that we did this, I almost was going to suggest one of their records, their most recent one, Spiritual Instinct, instead of the Warning. Remember when we did that one several months ago?
Yes.
The Warning from a Distance,
Which
that,
I loved.
doom metal record. It was either going to be that one or an Alcest record. So I really, really loved that band as well. But it's a very different approach to this similar vibe that, Predateurs.
Yeah, I think I listened to Spiritual Instinct and Kodama are the two that I checked out.
They're all really great.
Okay.
They're one of those bands that it's like, give me all of your vinyl.
Give me your finest everything.
Yeah. So
So something that this album's French. This band is French.
yeah.
The lyrics are in French. So I do not know what they're talking about. I haven't looked at translations or anything.
Same.
I do not know what's going on in this album, lyrically, thematically.
I'm sure it's all fascist.
I hope not.
Wouldn't that be terrible?
It's not that in my head, and I think that's all that I care about. For the most part.
It's all master race and
fuck.
white is right
No.
and 13 words and all this shit.
Well, now I got to go look it up to know, I guess. To know if I should cancel Les Discrets.
You're like, God damn it, like fucking French socialist post-black metal.
Is that like a big movement, or is that a thing?
What? I mean, there's
you're
National
describing?
Socialist black metal.
I mean, there are that everywhere, I'm sure, but like, is that a thing in
specifically
French?
in the black metal. No, not specifically French.
Okay.
But no, I mean, of all the metal subgenres, most of the fascists do, for whatever reason. Well, there's reasons, but they do nestle in black metal. Like you don't have like openly fascist death metal bands. I mean, they probably, but you do have openly like fascist, racist, Nazi black metal bands. It does exist. It is a thing.
Right.
But by that same token, you don't have openly like anti-fascist death metal bands either, and you do have anti-fascist black metal bands. So
Okay.
it is interesting how what genres of extreme music are allowed, like lean into politics and which don't.
Right.
Right. And death metal definitely does not. However, death metal has like overlapping roots in grindcore, which definitely does.
Huh.
And so it's interesting. It's interesting stuff.
But
yeah, the lyrics are in French.
so yeah, the lyrics are in French, so you don't know what they're talking about. And there's a thing that we've talked about a few times around, like, I guess the example that keeps coming to mind is when we did the video game stuff, the Nier albums.
Oh yeah,
that
sure.
are in it, primarily made up languages.
This is so cool too.
And so you get
look at this.
you get a
Like they put
Nice.
printing on the inside of the vinyl. Who the fuck does
Cool.
that? That's so awesome.
yeah, I appreciate that. But you experience music that you don't know what is being conveyed, and that's something that you don't get very often. You get it from very specific cases like that Nier soundtrack, or you get it from foreign music, from wherever you're at. For us, it's anyone who isn't English.
Right.
And I've gotten way into like a couple of Japanese bands over the years. Rammstein's a great example.
Great example.
And I always
Best Japanese band.
wonderful Japanese band. They're the cutest. They're the most kawaii band. But I always love finding an album like this that really hits me the right way. And I don't know what they're saying, and I don't ever want to know, because by the time it's already made the connection with me, I already know what I'm thinking that they're saying in my mind, and that's all that I need.
Yeah, man. I wrote something down similar that I wanted to talk about, in that sense that there's something about the lyrics being in a different language, to me, particularly French, as it syncs up with this music, that gives it an abstract quality. Like it, and so it it's like an open-ended thing, to where you're able to, it's like a half-empty cup, right? Like there's room for you to fill it up with whatever you need to fill it up with, like with whatever you're experiencing, whatever emotions you're having.
Right.
There's a room for you to attach it to these to whatever, whatever meaning you need to attach it to.
Yeah.
But there's still vocalizing.
Yes.
As opposed to just purely instrumental music, because everyone connects to the voice because we all have one.
Right.
Right.
You know somebody, that person's saying something. They're getting human thoughts across.
Right.
You just don't know what they are, but they have a feeling to them.
Right.
Right.
I used to.
You can kind of ascribe whatever you want to that.
Yeah, or like whatever you need to.
Or whatever you need. Yeah.
I used to listen to the Rammstein song, Seaman, or Zeman, or whatever. Because it's just a beautiful, kind of sad, kind of heavy, but just a beautiful song, and I would listen to it on repeat. Sometimes just because I just needed to process things, and I didn't need to know what those lyrics meant. Now, I did look up a lot of Rammstein translations.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. You know what I mean? Like I was able to put myself into that in an abstract way that I wasn't able to put myself into, October Rust, for instance.
Right.
Like October Rust is too literal. Like it's a cool song, or it's not, or it's this or it's that, or it's a cool story, or it's not.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm feeling those things, then I'm feeling them. If I'm not feeling those things, then I'm reacting to or referencing those things. But with Rammstein or music that's in a language you don't understand, like you can just open container, man.
Yeah, with lyrics that you understand, almost whether you want to or not, you're going to get the intentionality.
Yeah, there's going to be
you're just listening to someone talk and you know what they're saying.
Yeah, there's going to be a bias in there in some sense.
Yeah. So I really, really appreciate and cherish when albums like this come along.
Yeah.
And I can experience just that pure feeling of what it feels like they're saying to me. And I don't have to know, and I don't want to know, and that's all I need.
Beautifully said. So I just found this here. There's this really nice description here about in the vinyl here, description of the record. So Predators is an album about the loss of all, the loss of beauty, the loss of love, and the loss of empathy. It's an album dedicated to our planet and its most noble inhabitants, animals. It's an apology to all the destruction and suffering humans have done and do. We are the so-called most evolved species of all. Still, we are the one that destroys the most. The world and its beauties will die by our hands, and so do we. We are predators, our own predators.
Holy shit. Okay.
So that's where they're coming from.
Somehow that totally works for the feeling that I get for this album. And I'm wrong. There is one English part of this album, and it's the intro track. And
is a bear, is a pig, is a duh.
Is a bear, is a boy, is a
Yeah, is a duh, is a duh, is a boy.
Is a boy.
And the screams I heard in the slaughterhouse were the screams of my father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saying the screams of a whale, of a dying whale.
Yes, yeah.
Or the screams of his father who died of cancer.
Right.
I believe is what it was.
Right. It's making this point that suffering is suffering.
Yeah. No matter what the living thing is, everything can
suffering.
suffer.
Yeah.
Which was so I guess on some level that sort of plants a seed to what you're maybe thinking about subconsciously or otherwise getting into the album.
Right.
So fair enough there. But but also the music on its own and the songs otherwise, they do an incredible job.
This is a really long-winded way for us to say, if you want us to hear a vegan message, you better put it in a different language.
Maybe seed it a little bit in the opening track, but for the rest, I don't want to know what the fuck you're saying. You'll get your point across. If
Yeah,
it's
you
done
can
well.
tell me exactly what it is if it's a sample low in the mix, but the rest of that shit, you better do it in a language I don't fucking understand.
Right.
No, it's a beautiful album.
It is a beautiful album. Yeah.
One of the things I wrote about it is this album is like a good dream.
Yeah.
Slippery and sublime. There's no handles for it.
I like it. I think that works.
Because that was something that when I was like, let me revisit this, right? Because there's cool songs on October Rust. There's cool songs on Holographic Violence. None of these, like, I mean, they're all great, but none of these, like, really, I don't feel like I can just put my finger on any one thing on this album. Like, it's just this whole, just slippery dreamscape.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
You ever listen to any, like, Alan Watts lectures?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So there's this feeling that that feels very specific to Alan Watts lectures to me, which is you're listening to it, you're like, wow, this is so amazing. Wow, this is so insightful. Wow, this is so good. And like you're present and you're entertained and all these things. And then you're like, man, it's such a good idea. Let me put that in my pocket. Let me keep that idea. Hold on to that tightly and put it in my pocket. And then the lecture is over, the talk is over. You're walking around and you're thinking about it a few hours and you like check your pocket for that idea and it's empty. And that's how a lot of Alan Watts feels. Just the nature of how he, like, you feel like you're understanding it while he's talking, but then you can't really explain it later because he's not really a lecturer. He's a spiritual entertainer more than being a teacher. Not that you don't learn things, but...
Right. It's like sort of does enough to draw you in and get you along for the ride so that you're totally with him. But there are things that you can't grasp until you get into it deeper yourself later, maybe.
Right, yeah. He's not like, okay, so this is this, and this is this, and this is not this for reasons A, B, and C. Let's talk about these concepts. You know what I mean? He's not doing that, right?
Right.
This album sort of has like a similar, like you listen to it, you're like, that was amazing and that was great. What was great about it? I don't know.
Yeah.
What was your favorite song? I don't know. What was your favorite part? I don't know. So.
This is one of the, I mean, I'm generally a pretty album-centric person when it comes to music anyway. Like, I'll put on an album and listen to that album.
Sure.
But this is one of those ones where I'm going to listen to the entire thing every time.
So this is another interesting thing.
I want to go on that full journey every single time.
I think, because you're starting to see this more and more now that vinyl has made a comeback, is that people are making a lot more like 40-minute albums, right? Whereas in the 90s, and CDs were the heyday, everyone made goddamn 70-minute albums. Kerry King like made a joke about that once.
Yeah.
You know, he was like, "Oh God, we had to put so many crappy songs on all those records to fill up the CD."
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
Because you're gonna pay like fucking $18 for that CD. You don't want to pay $18 for something that's 30 minutes long.
Right.
You'd run out of music. You can't like go pay another fucking $20. You know, that's all the music you're getting for the fucking month.
Dude, yeah.
There's different times,
CDs were expensive.
different levels of scarcity. But I feel like though, because if you were gonna listen to October Rust on vinyl, it's gonna be a lot of fucking work because you're gonna have to change. You have to like get up and change that fucking vinyl every, you know, like
You have
every
to flip
two
it,
songs.
and then you just put it in the second record, and then flip that one eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like October Rust is a good example of an album that's, it's like, yeah, that's an album that works great for the medium of CD. And I feel like this one, you know, Predators is an album that works great for the medium of vinyl because it's relatively short. It's in that 40 to 45 minute range.
Yeah.
Flip it over, boom. You know, flip it over again, and it keeps going like, you know what I mean? It can keep going like a loop, right? I don't know. Well, anyway, but like that's the thing, right? Like you get to the end of October Rust on vinyl, you got to put that thing back in. You got to get the first one back out, you know. Anyway, just a silly observation. Anything else you want to add?
I mean, I don't know. That's a good point, actually. Like, does this have the track listing on it somewhere?
Yeah, here on the back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the last track is Leon de Paris in some amount of time, I think. And it's like, it feels like something you might listen to on like a night drive to me. Because it comes in, there's like a pulsing beat and like some low piano, and it just kind of fades in.
Right.
And it just kind of goes for a while, and then it just kind of fades back out. And I love that outro. I'm always like bummed when I hear it because I know the album's over, but I really like it.
Right,
And
right. I'm trying to refresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just goes for a little while.
It's so good.
Yeah.
That's like another thing that's trippy about that record. It's like I have very little insight or have thought very little about the instrumentation, how it was recorded, I don't care.
Yep. Doesn't matter.
Just give me that sonic blanket to just wrap myself up in.
Absolutely.
So.
Yep.
All right.
Good fucking albums this week.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I hope if you made it this far listening to my fucking weird ass voice and hacking and snotting and coughing, even if you didn't, I hope you just fucking listen to the records.
You're just doing your best Peter Steele impression. That's
It
all
was
it
meant
is.
to be.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, it was to make you listen to October Rust.
Man, gosh. At some point, probably within the year, I'll be like, "Hey, man, so I listened to the rest of Typo Negative, and we got to talk about it."
Well, listen, we got to talk about this.
Yeah, we got to talk about, you know. I mean, for real though, like just skipping around though, man, it was fucking wild. Like I haven't like given it its due diligence, but from my sort of cursory like dipping my toe into their previous records before and their ones after, it's not quite what I was expecting.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, this is all great, you know, and this is surprising, right? Like this is gonna, you know, this is not what anyway, whatever. I think Peter Steele's a fucking genius.
I think you're probably like I wouldn't say that about many people, but I kind of feel like from what I've experienced so far, I'm like I could see the argument there.
I don't say that about too many people.
Yeah. He seems like a really like singular dude.
Yeah. Yeah. He might be a genius certainly at this, you know.
Right.
And I don't say that about too many people. So, anyway,
Fair.
later guys.
Good stuff. Adios.